Good morning to you all. Let me first thank Professor Ajay Shekhar for kindly inviting me to deliver this brief lecture on behalf of the Center for Buddhist Studies at the Sri Sankara University, Calicut. I'm happy to be a part of this important conversation today. I've been asked to speak on a topic that concerns not just on religion or community, but the very idea of religious freedom and equality in India. We will look at two important laws, the Bodh Gaya Temple Act and the Waqf Amendment Act, um, how they affect the way religious communities can manage their own places of worship and property. At the heart of this issue are some basic questions. Who has the right to manage a sacred place? How much can the state involve itself in religious matters? And how do these actions match the values promised in our constitution? Though these two cases, one about a Buddhist temple and the other about Muslim religious lands, uh, they seem very different, but they are deeply connected. Uh, They both raise concerns about fairness, justice, and the rule of the state in religious life. So let us explore these questions together in a simple and open manner. As you all know, the Mahabodhi temple is in Bodh Gaya, Bihar, one of the most sacred places of Buddhists. And people believe that Siddhartha Gautama got enlightenment here. He sat under the Bodhi tree in the 6th century BC. And Emperor Ashoka supported this temple. Later, the Gupta kings also gave it support. But after that, the temple was neglected for many years, if not decades. And by the 16th century, um, things had changed. A Shaivite mutt took control of the temple, took control of the temple, and it was led by Mahant Gamandagiri. And this obviously ended Buddhist control over the holy site, and that change caused deep concerns among the Buddhists. And to deal with this temple dispute, the Bihar government passed a law in 1949. Remember, this was before the enunciation of the Indian Constitution. And this act was called the Bodh Gaya Temple Act. This law set up a temple management group known as the Bodh Gaya Temple Management Committee, or BTMC, which has 6 members on its board, 4 Hindus and 4 Buddhists. But there is an important rule about the chairperson. The district magistrate of Gaya would be the chairperson by default in the sense that, as an ex officio chairman. So the DM, district magistrate, was usually a Hindu. Even if the district magistrate is not a Hindu would still be chosen to lead. This rule was, of course, changed a bit in 2013, after several years, several decades. But the basic structure remains the same. And many people say this gives control of a Buddhist site to a Hindu-led body. This has led to protests and claims of unfair treatment. The law says the temple body is non-religious in nature, but in practice, it has led to many protests. Buddhist groups in India and other countries have raised their voices in several occasions. And they said that the law goes against Article 27 of the Indian Constitution. Of course, this article gives religious groups the right to manage their own religious matters. Mahabodhi temple is a special case. It is the only major holy place in India not run by people of its own religion. And this continues to be a serious concern for many Buddhists. Similarly, the recently amended Waqf Act, which is known as Umid Act, is very different from the Bodh Gaya Temple Act for several reasons. It brings major changes to the Muslim endowment system in India. And Waqf properties are lands or assets given for religious or charity purposes in Islam. The government says the new law will bring reform. It promises modernization and more transparency. But many people are worried. They say that the law gives the government too much control. It allows the state to interfere in how Waqf institutions are run. And this has raised serious concerns among Muslim communities. So the Waqf Act removes the old Waqf board system. Earlier, the Waqf boards had some independence. Now, members are chosen by the government. The law says at least two non-Muslims must be part of these boards. This has caused concern among many Muslims. Earlier, the board members were elected. They were chosen by Muslim MPs, MLAs, and bar council members. This election process is now cancelled with this new amendment, or rather the new legislation. So the new law also sets new rules for who can join. People under 21 years cannot be members. Those with a jail term of more than 2 years are also disqualified. So anyone guilty of taking over Waqf lands is not allowed either. So the Waqf Act makes or rather more big changes to Waqf laws. It cancels the idea of Waqf by user. This means land used by a Waqf for a long time is no longer valid if not formally recorded and registered. So it also says verbal Waqfs are not legal anymore. All Waqf properties must be digitally registered within a period of 6 months. So the most controversial part is about land records. If land is listed as government property in revenue records, it is removed from Waqf, even for old cases. This rule works with the retrospective effect. So the government says the law brings more accountability and better management. But many Muslim groups and legal experts disagree. They say that the law violates Article 25 and 26 of the Indian Constitution. These articles protect religious freedom and the right to manage religious affairs. But people fear loss of control over Waqf property. They also fear outside control from the state. This has led to protests in many states like Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, West Bengal, and Uttar Pradesh. The matter is now before the Supreme Court of India. The hearings are underway. And during a hear, the Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna asked a key question. He asked, would you allow Muslims to be part of Hindu temple boards? This question is very important today. It shows that the court is seriously looking at the fairness of the law. The bigger issue is about equal treatment for all religions in managing their own places. So the question is, are these two issues similar? At first, the two cases may seem very different. One is about a Buddhist temple under Hindu-led control. The other is about Muslim religious land managed by the state. But if you look at closely, they raise similar questions. First, who should control a religious place or a body? Second, how much can the government get involved in religion? The third, do these laws respect or sustain or support or weaken the idea of secularism in our constitution. Both Gaya Temple Act and the Waqf Amendment Act say they are for reform. But people from both communities, Buddhists and Muslims, look at these things differently. They feel these laws reduce their freedom, not protect it. So even though the issues look different, the deeper problem is the same. It is about religious rights, community control, and the role of the state. So, what does the Constitution say? Article 25 gives every person the right to follow any religion. They can believe, practice, and spread their faith. But this freedom has limits. It must not harm public order, health, or morality. Article 25 gives the right to religious groups. They can set up and run religious and charity institutions. They can manage their own religious matters. They can own land and property, and they can look after that property as per the law. The state can control only the non religious parts like money or records, but it cannot interfere with how a religion is practiced from within. In 1982, the Supreme Court, in a case, said that something like that. It said that the state can regulate, but it must not destroy a religion's identity. Now, let us apply this to the two cases. In the Mahabodhi temple, Buddhists say that Hindu control takes away their religious rights. In the case of Waqf lands, Muslims say the government is removing their right to choose their own board. In both cases, the laws may go against the spirit of Article 25 and 26. That's why people say there are serious constitutional problems. So when we look at it from the point of view of secularism, no, India follows a special kind of secularism. It is called principal distance, according to a scholar like Rajiv Bhargava. This means the state can step in to help reform, but it must not treat religions unfairly or interfere without good reason. The Supreme Court also supports this idea in this Keshavananda Bharati and Aruna Roy case. The court said that the state must treat all religions equally. This is part of the basic idea of Indian secularism. But both the Bodh Gaya Temple Act and the Waqf Act go against this principle. In both the Bodh Gaya Act, in the Bodh Gaya Act, the state supports an unequal system. It denies Buddhists full control of their own temple. In the Waqf case, the state changes how Muslim endowments are run. It replaces a religious system with a government-led one. This breaks long-held traditions of self-rule by the community. So these laws also connect the idea uh, by scholar Nancy Fraser. She talks about a misrecognition when the state fails to respect a group's identity and autonomy. So this is also an epistemic injustice. This means the community is not allowed to speak for itself or explain its own traditions. So both laws raise big questions about justice, respect, and the true meaning of secularism in India. So both Gaya Act, Temple Act, and the Umid Act are facing legal challenges. Of course, a case against BGTA has been in court since 2012. Several cases have been filed against the Umid Act, the Waqf Amendment Act. People are especially worried about its retrospective effect and a loss of property rights. These laws also have caused strong political reactions. Buddhist groups also, like AIBF, have protested. They held meetings, marches, hunger strikes. They say that this act is an old colonial law and goes against the constitution. Muslim groups are also protesting across this country. They see the Waqf Amendment Act as a part of a larger pattern. Other examples include the ban on triple talaq, making it a criminal act if it is done, and the push for a uniform civil code. So these protests are not just emotional reactions. They reflect deeper fears. People fear growing control by the majority community. They fear too much power in the hands of the central government. They fear the loss of constitutional rights for minorities. So all this shows that the state is changing its role. It's moving from being a neutral helper, arbiter, to becoming a controlling force in religious matters. Since February 12, a large protest has been happening in Bodh Gaya. Thousands of Buddhists are taking part. The protest is led by the All India Buddhist Forum, AIBF. They are holding an indefinite hunger strike. Their demand is clear: end the Bodh Gaya Temple Act of 1949. Give full control of the Mahabodhi temple to Buddhists. So things got tense when police detained about 25 fasting monks. After that, the protesters had to move to a new location. The protesters have serious concerns. They say that the temple committee is mostly non-Buddhist, and they accuse it of following a Brahminical practices. They also oppose the placing of a Shivalingam inside the temple. According to them, this changes the very nature of the temple. They believe it goes against the values of Buddhism. They also say that it violates the constitution. And they refer to Article 25, 26, 29, and 30. So these articles uh, protect religious freedom and minority rights. So the protest is not just about the temple. It is about respect, identity, and constitutional justice. So there is a growing support for this cause, and the All India Buddhist Forum it has a strong support. Over 30,000 people have signed their petition. More than 500 Buddhist organizations from around the world supported this cause. AABF has sent a formal request to repeal the Bodh Gaya Temple Act. They also raised concerns about how the temple is managed. They allege financial mismanagement and say Buddhist voices are being ignored. So ABF wants to form a new trust. This trust would be run only by Buddhists. Its aim is to protect the temple's purity and follow Buddhist values. It also wants to bring back religious freedom for the Buddhist community. So despite the global attention, political leaders and the media in general have mostly remained silent. These two laws, the Bodh Gaya Act and the Waqf Act, come from different religions. They both do the same thing. They take away community rights using governmental power. They force us to ask big questions. Is the state helping communities or trying to control them? Are these laws really about reform or about regulation? Both laws challenge the promises made in the Constitution. India says it stands for secularism and pluralism, but these actions seem to weaken that promise. Muslims make up about 14% of India's population, roughly about 200 million. Buddhists are less than 1%, about 10 million. But rights are not about numbers. The Constitution protects all religions, big or small. That's what constitutional morality means. Courts and lawmakers must remember this. They should not follow majority rule in such matters. They must protect religious freedom and community dignity. The state should not take control over take over religious life in the name of reform. Its real job is to ensure justice, fairness, and respect for all. So these debates are not about temples or Waqf lands. They are about what kind of a country India wants to be. They are about protecting the soul of the constitution. I'm sure that these two issues will be a kind of a challenge to Indian secularism in the coming days also. Thank you very much for being with me for this small and brief lecture. Thank you.